Death by meeting today on the Daily Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Daily Show, a show not just for rental housing providers, but anybody looking to get a little bit more white space on your calendar. Hello everybody, my name is Mark. I am your coach for the next 9 or so minutes. It is good to see you. So today we're talking about death by meeting. I remember my time back in the corporate world, and I'm thinking as I'm walking out of the last job I ever had, which I actually got canned from, which was a blessing in so many ways. Of course, when you're in the middle of the freak out moment, you're thinking about going back into the building with an Uzi. I'm just kidding. This was 15 years ago. I'm not doing that, but I'm just saying I was pretty pissed. So I was thinking about, the death by meeting that I would often have to put up with, because we would have meetings just about to talk about our next meetings, which just seemed so crazy. And I remember the time of just sitting there dismantling my pen, field stripping my pen, and thinking that this was going to be, or breaking up my little styrofoam cup into little pieces so I could create a nice little snowflake scene when I blew them off the table, suffering death by PowerPoint. These are all the things that I know. If you guys can relate, go ahead and what is your favorite way to get through a horrible meeting, especially now, like that Zoom is, it's almost like, okay, I'll log into Zoom just so I can go through my thing. And now I use Zoom for coaching, for my coaching with my clients. But, I don't know if Zoom has made it any better or worse, but I remember leaving the corporate world and I vowed no more meetings as I'm chanting this. And just like when I left college and I swore no more reading, I didn't have to read any more books. And of course I left the Marine Corps swearing no more PT. Yeah, none of that was true, by the way. I ended up reading probably more books than I have in 1 year than I ever read my entire time in college. But, and of course, now I'm going to the gym darn near every day. How wrong I was, right? But the problem is not the meeting. It's the fact that meetings are ineffective. And that was what I recognized, or I didn't recognize at the time, but now I recognize now. So if you're part of a team, just go ahead. If anybody's out there that's part of a team, go ahead and raise your hand and get in some comments there. I usually walk out of worthless meetings. Okay, that's it. That's a good way to do it. If you have the option of walking out of a worthless meeting, then that's great. Not everybody does though. But if you're part of a team, if you have not read Patrick Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, this is where that comes into play. So let's dig into that a little deeper for a second. First of all, if you've not read it, I'm going to tell you it's a little tough to get through. Not that it's not well written. It actually is well written, but as a teaching device, it's like I didn't like the way it was laid out. I think it was very difficult to actually pull the lessons out of it, but that's just me. But here's what I'll tell you. First of all, it's based on a hierarchy. So kind of like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let me say that quickly. The hierarchy is like, first, your base need, for example, is physiology, your physical needs, right? In Maslow's. So, and you look at Maslow, right? And if you don't have food, water, and shelter, if you don't have food, if you're dying of hunger or dying of thirst, your subsequent needs of safety and security and love and belonging and of esteem and finally of self-actualization, those are the 5 needs of Maslow. If you're starving to death or you're dying of thirst, your esteem needs are not gonna, you can't even hope to accomplish your esteem needs, right? So it's the same thing. It's in a hierarchy. So the first of the level here is the absence of trust, not just lack of trust, but it's because of an absence of trust, right? I've talked about this in a couple of other videos. So you have the absence of trust, then you have fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and then inattention to results. So again, it's a hierarchy. So if you don't have trust, a fear of conflict is not going to matter. If you don't have trust, or if you're afraid of conflict, a lack of commitment is not going to matter. Avoidance of accountability is not going to matter. Inattention to results is not going to matter, because it all starts with trust. Think about this in the terms of in the context of a marriage, for example. If you're a marriage, which you're a team of 2, right? If you don't have trust, everything else falls apart, and nothing else really matters if you don't have the trust. So that trust is created by being vulnerable, by allowing vulnerability to exist. And if people can't allow themselves to feel vulnerable, trust, you're not going to build trust. It's just it takes that's just basic leadership, right? You have to have vulnerability. I don't know any great leader that has not led from some position of vulnerability. It's just the way it is. So, in terms of fear of conflict, this is where you have false harmony. Oh, everything's great. Everything's absolutely great. Even though it might be burning down around them, nothing's great. Think about of a dysfunctional family where they're afraid to have conflict. Now, not all conflict is bad. You can have healthy conflict. My wife and I have healthy conflict. It's not venomous. It's honest. It's honest and vulnerable. Everything's not always great, and sometimes we have to have conflict. But we have very healthy conflict, and that's where that comes from. My team, we can have healthy conflict. But the next thing is the lack of commitment, where you're revisiting things over and over and over and over. And that's where a lot of people get really frustrated, because you're talking about the same things over and over and over in your meetings because there's a lack of commitment. Okay, so think about this again. You have the absence of trust, you have the fear of conflict, lack of commitment. Most of the time, that's where it's all falling apart. So you never even get to the avoidance of accountability, and you never get to even looking at results, because the inattention to results is pointless because you have those underlying issues, right? Now, that's a whole lot of problems I'm not going to get into right now, but just understand that there is no trust, meaning that your team members are unwilling to be vulnerable with one another. Nothing else is going to matter. But you might be thinking, hey, hang on a second. How does this make a difference in why meetings suck or don't suck? Now, can't we just eliminate meetings altogether and just go do our work? Well, you can, but keep in mind, you're getting paid to solve problems. And I know a lot of people who watch this show are solopreneurs. You're in business for yourself, and you get paid to solve problems. The most effective meetings are going to flush out the most pressing problems there are, both for you as an organization, but most importantly for your customers. So the more money you get paid really is about the most expensive problems you can solve. The bigger problems you can solve, the more money you get. So what happens if you're a team of one? Should I still hold meetings? Well, my favorite book, I thought I put it aside, this is actually, I say it's my favorite book. I've read a lot of really, really good books this year. This happens to be one that is definitely always in my top 10 list. And in this book, you can see how yellow the pages are. This was actually the first book that I bought after college, and I love it. I absolutely love this book. It's The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. Chet Holmes passed away in his early 40s. I still love this book. I think this is such a go-to. A lot of it is not as relevant as it used to be, but it is still really, really good. So if you are in a business where you are trying to grow your organization, and I'll talk about that another time, but in terms of the metrics and how to do that, this book right here is fantastic. Now, I have a 2-day course that's coming up. If you want to go to, let me go back to this here real quick. I'll throw this up as a shameless plug. The timewealthyadvantage.net/sign up. I got a 2-day event coming up. It's $97, and I will give you a money back guarantee on that. But if you go to that, and what I talk about during that 2-day event is the 4 core functions of every business. And the 4 core functions of every business are marketing and lead gen, sales, operations, and accounting. Now, those are the 4 core functions. There are, of course, other functions, but those are the 4 core functions. They have to exist in every business: marketing and lead gen, sales, operations, and accounting. Now, I put metrics together based on those 4 core functions. You have to have all 4 core functions, and you have to have metrics that will track what those 4 core functions are delivering. Okay. So if you happen to be a team of one, yes, this is what this book talks about, is having that meeting every single week. And you should still schedule those meetings. Now, in the book Traction by Gino Wickman, this is the other book. This is a really good book. I think this is definitely better for larger organizations, but there was a couple things that I took out of there. And I will tell you, the one thing that I loved about that book is the level 10 meeting agenda, which I honestly think is a fantastic way to run a meeting. I had different agendas for my meetings before, but what you're going to learn about in Traction from Gino Wickman, this is a book that many, many people have read. It's a fantastic way to run a meeting. I honestly thought my meeting agenda was good until I read that one. Honestly, I'm going to get into that another time, but I know I'm going a little long on this one. Usually keep around 10 minutes. But the biggest takeaway I have is that the meetings have to be focused on just a couple of things. One, they have to be focused on action-based metrics, not just historical data like sales figures or whatever comes off the income statement. Things like gross sales and net profit from your income statement are all things that have already happened. You can't do anything about them. You have to look at action-oriented metrics so you can adjust your inputs a lot sooner so you can still save a bad month or bad quarter or bad fiscal year. Make sense? So they have to be action-based metrics. Now, those action-based metrics are also based on your year outlook. Like, what are you trying to accomplish for that year? And you simply back into those action-based metrics, like how many sales calls are you doing, or how many customers are you getting in front of, things like that, right? Number two, the meetings have to address and prioritize the biggest issues going on. Now, the biggest issues going on, not all issues are the biggest issues. You have to prioritize them. And the most amazing things I love about the level 10 meeting agenda from Traction is they break down what the most important things are and they force you to address them. So just because it's something is an issue on your list, it forces you to address that biggest issue. So that's the way it forces you to do that is the third thing is it keeps a running to-do list. I can't tell you how many times right now. Let's go back to the 5 dysfunctions of a team for a second. Remember we talked about lack of commitment where you're addressing the same things over and over and over again. Well, they keep a running to-do list of things that were brought up at the last meeting. So they're going to make sure that the things that come up to the next meeting are actually done. This is also why you need to hold those meetings with yourself so you can force yourself like, hey, I'm seeing this thing. It's jumping up. It's coming up all the time. This is also why you need an accountability partner, whether that's a coach or whether that's a virtual assistant or somebody to help hold you accountable. So, you know, you're not just revisiting the same things over and over and over and never getting any traction. Thus the name of the book by Gino Wickman. So if you put these 3 things into the context of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, the absence of trust, the fear of conflict, the lack of commitment, the avoidance of accountability, the inattention to results, this meeting agenda for the level 10 meeting agenda, this pretty much addresses all of them. And of course, you know, unless you just don't hold the meeting, which, you know, I know some people just rather do that. But anyway, well, that is all I have for today, everybody. Thanks for sticking with me for a little bit longer. If you would like to sign up for this, it's coming up this weekend, actually, timewealthyadvantage.net/sign up. $97. I will send you a copy of the Time Wealthy Investor 2.0. I'll even sign it. So basically it becomes pretty much worthless. You won't be able to give it away, but I'll do that. And I'll throw in a coaching session for you as well. So just spend 55 minutes going over whatever it is you want to talk about. I'm happy to help you really just get dialed in so you guys can be ready for 2022, so you can get your goals all set, so you can go through all those individual things that you're having problems with, so you're not recycling your goals over and over again from 2020 to 2021 and 2022 and so on and so forth. Let's get those things, let's get them set. Let's get those things ironed out and set those things up so you are ready for success. And that is all I have for tonight, folks. I appreciate you sticking around with me. I hope you guys had an awesome weekend. Please be sure to place a value on your free time, because if you don't, someone else will. Most important, there is no amount of money that will make time irrelevant. Have an awesome day. I'll see you guys next time.